What is going on, Podcast Nation? This is episode 22. We're not going to forget in the 20s, Eddie. It's a pact we made for ourselves. We will not lose track of what episode we are on. What is going on, everyone? I believe, Eddie, is this like our fourth week in a row now of episodes?
Yeah, fourth. Well, I think I missed one.
You missed one because you're a traitor, but as a show overall, we've been on a roll, man. There's a lot of momentum happening right now, in my opinion. We got a lot of good things going. And speaking of good things, I am pumped, super pumped to have Mr. Anthony Maher on the show today from Benjamin's Desk. Good friend of mine. What is up, Ant?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Excited to be on here.
Appreciate it, man. It's it feels like just yesterday I saw you. So it's really weird about that, man.
Yeah, it was like 12 hours ago, yeah?
Has it been that long already? So it's pretty crazy, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ant, just kind of for those who have no idea who Benjamin's Desk is, who you are, can you give like a quick background for people to have like a tiny idea like who you are?
Yep, that's right. So Benjamin's Desk is a co-working space in Philadelphia. We're building out a network of spaces. Our main mission and goal is to help entrepreneurs and companies grow. So we're closing in on 100,000 square feet by the end of this year. We started at 3,000 square feet right in Center City, Philadelphia. We're 3.5 years old, and we've gone from about 3 full-time employees to 12 full-time employees and an extended team of about 16. So all Philadelphia, born and raised.
Was that your first location, the one in Center City?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in it right now, where I'm in a little tiny phone room at 17th and Walnut. And we launched that about 3.5 years ago on this floor. Before we even, I told you this, Josh, before we even knew what a startup really was, we just knew that entrepreneurs needed a place to kind of huddle. We've always been real estate guys, and 17th and Walnut, you don't get a better address than that.
So I'm actually curious about this, and we'll dive more deep in a second about this, is how long were you involved in real estate before you were involved in co-working? Because I don't even know the answers to this one.
Yeah, so that's, when I guess it's been a journey, right? So got a full scholarship to a Division II school in Erie, Pennsylvania. My heart was always set on D1, but I couldn't get any of the full scholarship packages. So I went to Erie, Pennsylvania, did really well, wound up becoming a first-team All-American, did really well in Division II, and got drafted right away. Now, I'm a bit older than you guys, so MLS wasn't around when I graduated high school, right? MLS came about in 96. Or 97, they launched their league in Philadelphia, or launched their league in America. And so my aspiration was always to play professional indoor soccer.
I believe they call it football.
Football, especially in your neck of the woods.
I don't recognize that term. Yeah, I don't recognize that term.
Hey, I think Americans are trying to own that term now. We used to hide away from it when it comes to European.
Yeah, I still hide it.
I think there's a bad Nugget commercial how it talks about soccer is here. Wasn't a good one, but so I turned pro right out of college, and I always had this bug of liked owning property. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur when I was a young kid, and my first year as a pro in Cleveland, there were some opportunities. Other guys, some seniors on the squad, were talking about some investments and diversifying a bit. And kind of someone took me under their wing, told me about, their model of buying real estate to rent it out. And one thing led to another, read a couple books, shadowed a couple people. But my third year as a pro, because of the downtime, you're working out 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. There's a lot of downtime in between. I started to just explore what was out there, and bought my first duplex when I was 23. And then following summer, I bought 4 more duplexes. So on the real estate side, Josh, I was more like a residential landlord, buying properties, flipping them, and really looking at experience of the tenant.
What was the learning process like? How did you do that? The internet wasn't as easily accessible, and Google wasn't there to teach you anything you needed to know. So what were you doing to learn the ins and outs of real estate? I feel like that's a really complex.
Yeah, I think the mindset first. We read a book by Guy Kawasaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right when I was finishing up college. Liked his mindset about going after things that you wanted to achieve. Always knew about real estate as far as families that owned a lot of real estate in Jersey, particularly the Jersey Shore. So we knew that was kind of a pathway to owning your own destiny when it came to, being successful. So shadowing one of the guys that was a about a 5-year pro. He was dumping his money into real estate, land, and also properties. Just learning experience from him. And then literally, if you remember 2005, 2006, interest-only loans were available back then. So I had great credit. I was young. I was making money. Anytime a cash bonus came in from signing or from winning, I always knew I wanted to allocate it to the real estate side of things. So timing was on our side. Back then, you literally could get a $500,000 loan on no interest, not really showing any type of documentation. It was part of the bubble that crashed in 2008. And so we got lucky with some timing and was able to scoop up a lot of real estate, maybe when our net worth wasn't there at all, right? Because I'm just coming out of college.
I'm curious about this. Were you being involved in real estate in the 2008, 2009 market then, when kind of it all went to shit temporarily?
Yeah, I remember. It's the spring of 2008 when we tried to refinance and take some cash off the table because we bought at a really good price point, and we turned down some offers from some of the real estate that we had. We were literally buying the worst house on the best block, and we were doing really well with making the changes to the space. And as we tried to pull out money for the first time, because we've done it before and it was easy. I mean, we literally would pull out lines of credit and pay ourselves back anytime we put any type of capital into the properties. And this was like a reality check. Like the bank said, we'll get back to you in 30 days. And then it turned into 60 days. And then they told us flat out no. And this was someone that we were dealing with for the past 3-4 years. So we didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't have my pulse on what was happening nationally or even internationally and how it was going to affect the markets over here. And it kind of whacked us on our butt a bit. So the cool part is we were about to buy 4 more properties at the spike of spring 2008, and we got turned down. And I'm glad we got turned down because 6 months later, the whole market crashed. And this was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So in the Midwest where I was playing, it's where I met my wife as well. And so it was a huge learning opportunity around timing and also around what's plan B, when you get punched in the face like that, what's plan B? And we didn't have the time.
Timing is super important though. And your timing with the co-working ventures is amazing because like in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been like a boom of co-working spaces. And you just see them popping up all over, major cities, and even some smaller cities have like these little hubs for their communities, and the tech scene is kind of just evolving around.
No doubt about it. We even as we transitioned from Milwaukee to rental properties, Eddie, we bought some land in Virginia, which was a great investment at the time. This was like 2007. In 2009, we bought some land in Nicaragua, right when Daniel Ortega, who's the president of Nicaragua, was starting to change his mentality from dictator, tyrant to I want more folks coming to our beautiful land because Costa Rica is right next door to us and we have the same beaches and the beautiful water that they have. And so, we diversified a little bit and we look at all 3 of those different situations, whether it's Milwaukee rental property, Virginia land, or Nicaragua beachfront. Timing was playing a part in all those situations. And you're spot on. Co-working has blown up the past 5 years. You're talking about 500% increases of locations nationally that are just popping up. And I think it proves that it's not just a trend.
I want to dive more into that in a second, like the reason for the growth. But I'm curious back on like the rental properties and owning this all. Were you making most of your income through actually just like rental income on top of what you're paying for the actual mortgages of it? Or was your goal like, we'll basically break even to the point where the appreciation of its value would increase and we'll flip them, but in the meantime, make it so we're breaking even. So it's almost like we're making an investment without having to make the investment.
Yeah, so we were always good with numbers. So we never wanted to lose on a monthly basis. Cash flow was important to us. We didn't want to dip into any of our own personal savings. And so cash flow was important. Some of the properties cash flowed really well. To give you an example, we were paying about an $800 mortgage, and we were bringing in about $2,200 of rent every month. As we started to learn about treating the tenants of our spaces better than anybody else on the block, they became loyal. They didn't even want to leave when there was a better house next door because of the way we were treating them, our responsiveness, the way we would serve them, and just care about how they were living. That was kind of our differentiator. And so we said, if we can replicate that type of service to our tenants, maybe the cash flow business is good. If we can make $1,500 on every rental property times 10, that's good residual income that we wanted to live on. And so I got caught up in that. I could have flipped pretty quickly and made $50,000 drops on each property, but I got so wrapped up into the tenant experience and I fell in love with it. That's kind of what I'm doing now.
That's not a common thing either. I think that I've only ever heard nightmares about tenants and landlords like having to deal.
Well, that's why it's uncommon, right, Eddie? So I was having good experiences with our tenants. My tenants were on time. They were honest, transparent. When they got jammed up, we did what we could to be flexible. That's where I had my blinders on. I should have been, if I was a real strong real estate entrepreneur when I was 23, 24, I would have flipped the property as soon as someone offered me another $100,000 on top of what I bought it for. But I just enjoyed giving a good experience to the tenants, and they almost became not friends, but like acquaintances.
I'm sure that translates into your co-working spaces. Probably feel that same cultural experience like you were giving your tenants back in the day. So that's a good
spot on. Yeah, it really was. So as much as people came down on me, why I didn't flip to make money, because I wound up short selling. If you're familiar with short selling, that's kind of foreclosing, but going with a realtor to say, hey, we'll take this off your books. You won't be hit with a foreclosure. Your credit will be intact, but you bought it for $150,000. We're going to give you $130 for it, and everybody's going to just be okay with it because of the bubble burst. And then we sold one, made a little bit of money, but it wasn't worth our time and effort. And then one significant we held on for after the bubble and just had resilience and took it on the chin in regards to holding on to it, and finally provided a profitable return. And so it was a lot of learning experiences. You got knocked down. A lot of the lectures I got from some of the real estate entrepreneurs that I look up to now talked about timing and not getting emotionally involved. But being a guy like me, I got emotionally involved, and that's definitely helps our business today to get to know who not our tenants, our members are, and understand what they're going through.
So what would you say was the biggest thing you took away from real estate that you're now applying to co-working overall?
So really understanding timing, right? And timing matters. I always talk about timing, team, and overall execution. So the resilience that we have for that third rental property in Milwaukee to see through the lack of lines of credit, the lack of capital, which made us inject our own capital into it, really allowed me to understand that timing matters, man. And when you surround yourself with smart people that can understand the shifts of what's happening in any industry you're in, you got to be aware of it. So I became more of a student of what I'm getting into, whether it's, raising a flag with a sports facility or co-working. I want to know what's happening nationally and internationally. It's going to affect my day-to-day business. I had my blinders on. I was worried about UWM, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee block of rental properties. And I was really only understanding the pulse of River West, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And now looking at everything I jump into, I try to be a student of the game and really look at how I can be well-versed on what's happening, what trends are taking place. And I think that's helped us tremendously at Benjamin Fest. So,
a Packers fan while you're up in Wisconsin?
Oh, man, everybody looked like Brett Favre. I know Brett Favre wasn't born and raised in Wisconsin, but every guy I met up there, especially the seniors, looked like Brett Favre. Good folks up there. My father-in-law is one of the best of them. That's where I met my wife. It's an unbelievable city, believe it or not. Short summers, hard winters, but good people.
I think, do you know Andrew Brandt?
Oh, yeah. Andrew's up there for years, man. That's what I saw. You guys did Andrew Brandt on your show, right?
We did Andrew. But one of the things he brought on the show was about how he loved being up there, but ended up driving him crazy because only people talk about the Packers. So wherever he would go, people would know him and ask all these questions to the point where he said, I need to go. So I just always thought that was kind of funny. Speaking of Wisconsin, you have a Chicago Bear on the call now, Mr. Dan. So
I'm here.
Yes. So, Dan, Ant is probably your mortal enemy because he lived in Wisconsin for so many years. So, you guys may actually be mortal enemies. So, actually,
no, I enjoyed my time in Chicago. I would take that hour-and-a-half trip down to Chicago and enjoy the big city.
Well, that's why I'm on the upper window, because the Bears are always above the Packers.
There you go. There you go.
Except where it counts with Super Bowl rings. But I digress. So, I really want to get to the co-working conversation because I think it's going to take the bulk of our time. But I am curious, a lot of people don't realize how rigorous a professional athlete and the training, the health, the regimen. Can you give us a little glimpse of that window, especially for those who are listening, what you went to from being drafted, what that process was like to actually getting to the pros and actually being able to play a game, and what kind of the work ethic you kind of developed off of that. And I know that it translates today. I know it clear as day, but I think it kind of set the tone for your eventual career. So I'm curious if we can dive into that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a big part of who I am and my journey to where I'm at today. I think when looking back, a lot of it was sacrifice. You know, I was fortunate enough to have parents that saw that I had a passion for something, saw that I was maybe a little bit more talented than most of the average kids that I was playing with all the way down in South Jersey. And they put me on a good pathway where it was easier to sacrifice going to the parties, having a girlfriend, you know, doing the things that some of my boys were doing, you know, on the weekends in the summers, and to stay singularly focused on my development as an athlete. And so because I had that support system, you know, it's a bit of a safety net. My father was always in my ear about working hard. What's your work rate? What did you do today to accomplish your goals? What are you going to do tomorrow? Yesterday doesn't matter. He never wanted to hear me say, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I want to know what I'm doing today. I want to know how my end of my day was. And so when you have that in your ear, it kind of changes your mindset of what's possible. You can kind of own your own destiny and the struggles along the way. So when I look back at my career, you know, I was a small high school player. So I was like my junior year, senior year, when all the college coaches are giving out scholarships, I was still a young kid, 100 pounds and small, didn't really hit puberty like some of my other peers did. And, you know, I kept looking around and my buddies were getting picked up by Division I schools. And I was kind of waiting. In fact, the big New Jersey State All-Star game, I wasn't invited to. And I was one of the leading goal scorers in the state. And so one coach calls me up and was like, hey, sorry you weren't on the roster. I don't know how that happened. Why don't you come up? You won't be on the roster that everybody reads in the audience or at the stadium, but we'll get you in the game. I remember that kind of fueled me. You know, my parents were upset. My teammates were upset because they want me to represent the high school that I was left off the All-Star team. But one coach that loved watching me play kind of went to bat for me, even above my high school coach, and said, hey, I'm going to get you in this game. Show up. I'll make sure you have a uniform. You might not be announced, but we'll get you in the game. And that meant a lot to me. So, you know, my father told me not to go. Other folks said, you know, don't even worry about there'll be other All-Star games. But I went anyway because I had respect for this Scottish coach named Jerry McFarland. And I wound up being player of the game. And it was funny because everybody's fumbling over how to spell my last name and, you know, how come he's not on the roster. And it caught a lot of people's attention, and I wound up getting a full scholarship to a Division II school.
Sounds like they might have done you a favor. You had the element.
Yeah, it was cool. I knew some of the guys, and I thought the guys on the field knew me a little bit, but sometimes the politics of who votes for who based on what school they're in got involved. But I look back at that moment, and I'm glad I went. You know, if I didn't have that coach in my ear, and I remember looking him in the eye and seeing he had real authentic care about me as a young kid. And that's rare back then when a coach can look at you and you can know, damn, that dude cares about me. He's on another team, but you can tell he genuinely liked how I played, and he went to bat for me. Anytime I see him years later, me and him just connect as if we pick up from the day we just left off. So that's an important moment. The sacrifice, people like that being involved in my life to put me on a pathway. And then once everything triggers, it's almost like you have this mindset of you can do anything. You can literally, if you want to outwork somebody, put in one more extra hour per day, work out a little bit longer. My thing in college was, because you can get wrapped up in the college life, especially a small college like Mercyhurst, where it's only 5,000 kids there. You become a big name pretty quick, and small campus life. You can get wrapped up into going out and just forgetting your goals. And my thing was work out late at night, work out really early when no one else is, just to create a mindset is if someone else is working out at 11 at night in a stadium when it's completely dark, good for them. But I bet the majority of folks aren't. So that mindset started to just develop who I was.
I'm curious. You end up in Wisconsin. You end up all over the map pretty much. You go down to Chicago, an hour and a half drive. What ended up making you come back to Philly? Was it like your parents being in Jersey, like right across the river? What made you say Philly's going to be where I'm going to set the next stage of my career or the next stage of my life?
So I'll give you a quick snapshot. I like talking soccer because I'm in this tech ecosystem. We don't talk soccer enough, so I'm going to spend another couple minutes on this. So the snapshot is literally in America, there's MLS, right? Yep. And then there's Division I, Division II. Let's not use Division I. MLS, A-League, which is like AAA, and then USL, which is like AA. And so right away I got drafted into, and then there's indoor soccer. So you got outdoor soccer and indoor soccer. Is that
single A, indoor soccer?
Yeah, it's almost like
private league.
It's the highest level in indoor soccer. but it's during the winter time.
Gotcha.
And the AAA and AA really are during spring and summer.
Got it.
So trying to make as much money as I can, I always got a maximum contract in both leagues. But my goal was always to get to the MLS. And so for the spring and summers, I was in one city playing outdoor soccer. And then for the winters, I was in one city playing indoor soccer. So I was playing year round, getting a year round salary. And it was one of those things where my body, I was built for that. And, my eye was always on MLS. And so that's like the genesis of the soccer and the journey I was on, just to set the framework as we talk about different leagues and different cities.
Were you, I'm curious, like, what was an average day when you were playing soccer? Like, not game day, like a normal practice day. Like, what time were you waking up? How many times were you hitting the gym? How long were you on the field for? I'm just curious, like, what does that regimen look like? Yeah,
so it's pretty simple, and it's pretty, I fall in love with it. It's usually about a 3-hour morning, a half hour before practice, where you're in the locker room, getting to know your other teammates, hanging out, getting prepped, doing whatever you got to do physically to get ready for practice. 2 hours of training time, and then another half hour after practice in the locker room with the guys, just building up team morale. Then you're on your own, really. Most coaches will make sure that you hit the gym for an hour sometime in the afternoon, make it required twice a week, or you're just on your own for any type of evening trainings. And those were the opportunities where you get with other guys that are working hard and piggyback on whatever training regimen they have. It was always in the back of my head that someone was going to come take my job. These younger kids were coming up faster, more talented, more skillful. And so I always said, I'm going to try to be the first to practice, last to leave. I know this is episode number 22. So when you say number 22, I have a great story of my buddy Johnny Steele, who came over from Ireland at the age of 16, was released from like an English Premier League team, Eddie out in, where did he come from? Northern England, Workington area, okay? And he was with the Premier League team called the Wolves. I think they're in Division 1 now in England. And so he got a nice little like $50,000 release because he got released when he was 16. He didn't sign the big contract, came over to America and was on this AAA team in Syracuse, New York with me. I remember looking at this 16-year-old with all this swagger. I'm a 23-year-old out of college thinking, I'm not a rookie, I'm a first-year pro. But this 16-year-old had more experience than any of us rookies or first-year pros because he was playing in that high level in England since he was 13. And so it was fun to see us gravitate. I took him under wing like my little brother. I call him my adopted brother. I'm the godfather of a couple of his kids. He went onto a pathway and kind of followed me. He was way more talented, but every time I went to a AAA team, he was there with me as the big name. He was the one then dragging me along with him to the AAA teams. Eventually, he got pulled on to the New York Red Bulls, represented his country from Northern Ireland. Still playing to this day. He's enjoying about a 13-year career now. I finished up at 10 years, so got to give a shout out to my boy Johnny Steele, who's listening. He's down in Miami finishing up his career in a AAA team.
Miami's a great spot to finish up your career.
Oh, yeah. He's doing it right. He's got a 2-year guaranteed contract going down.
So I got to ask probably one of the big questions in entrepreneurship and sports and creativity: talent over hard work or hard work over talent?
I've seen both, man. So when I pick out my team, sometimes I look at talent first, believe it or not. I've always gravitated to the general managers of all of our franchises I was part of, because I like the business side of what was happening with these franchises. And sometimes you can teach someone to have hard work. I don't know if you can teach them to have the mindset of resilience and really being a competitor. But sometimes when talent comes along, you got to identify talent and you got to take them under your wing, and hopefully your culture is strong enough to show them the values that you believe to allow them to even have greater success.
So, speaking of competitiveness, I think this also goes hand in hand with talent, hard working, but like competitiveness to me is something that you're kind of born with. It's hard to like instill competitiveness unless, I should say you're born with it, but your childhood, your early upbringings is what instills that into you.
Definitely a part of your personality.
Yeah, that's,
I don't know. We're cavemen, man. We're just like, oh, I got to be better than Anthony.
Some people are
got to be better.
No, but my question here is, now we're going to coworking for a second. When you look at the companies that end up being successful, like any companies, usually it's because the founding team, the people running it, aren't just talented and they're not just hardworking, but they're competitive as hell. They're willing to outwork anyone. They're able to identify their marketplace without worrying about their marketplace, right? They don't lose sleep over what they're doing, but they're aware of what's happening, and they know they need to take that one extra step to kick their butts, right? So I'm curious, like, especially in your position, Ann, is like, did that competitiveness, like, do you feel it's always been in you, or did it translate from playing soccer into real estate, eventually into co-working and entrepreneurship? Like, what's your philosophy behind competitiveness?
Yeah, it was always in me. I had 3 brothers. My father had 5 brothers. My father was a police academy instructor, chief of police. So he would take me to the police academy when they were training and boxing some of the cadets. And so I've always enjoyed the competitive nature of, can you outwork somebody? Can you put in more work than the guy next to you? What I see at Benjamin's desk now is a mindset of, you hear about the word failure all the time. I like the mindset of, you're not afraid to fail, but you don't, what do they say? You're not afraid to fail, but you'll do whatever it takes to succeed. And, it's a mindset that a lot of entrepreneurs have in Philadelphia and also at Benjamin's desk that I respect, because they'll put in the work. They're not just going to say, hey, timing wasn't right. Couldn't find the right town, or capital wasn't accessible. They're willing to put in those extra hours of work, not extra knocks on the door, to be successful. And then, whether you call that competitive or resilient, it's a mindset that they're going to do whatever it takes not to fail.
I have an interesting thing of competitiveness. How competitive are you with yourself? So, like, every day trying to better yourself. Like, that's something I feel goes hand in hand with it too, like the resiliency aspect of it. So do you like monitor your own self, your own metrics, your own behavior, and try to improve upon that too? Or is that something you're more like maybe just self-aware about, but not put as much time and energy into as much as maybe other things?
Yeah, well, in the sports world, it's easy because the next practice, if you had a crappy practice day before, the cool thing is you have a practice the next day. If you have a crappy game, you have a game the next week. And so you could always reset and beat yourself up and be a student, but it wouldn't linger. It wouldn't wear you down or bog you down like I had a bad performance. There was always a next day. You guys know this better than anybody as an entrepreneur. You live and die by the emails that come across your server every day. So if you're going to get beat up over an email and let that affect you, you're not going to survive.
I think that was a learning thing in the beginning for us. And we used to do that. We used to really get bent out of shape about certain emails, and we used to spend time talking and over talking and overthinking things. And I think that was an important lesson for us, was to get.
Yeah, it's easy to though, right? I mean, I'm looking at some emails pop up on my top of, some good emails, and then, damn, I didn't know we had a $3,000 bill for an HVAC purchase that we had to do for a new location, which is now over budget. But it goes back to, I guess, what we talked about in Wisconsin about rental properties, man. Having a strong plan B, having an understanding of when things come your way that way, how do you maneuver as a team? And I like to see my team respond in a way where we want to be better. What are the little wins? If we can find little wins in how we're operating on a monthly basis and a quarterly basis, those add up to something big every year. And I'm big on how my team or managers execute on an event, or how they execute on a major partnership deal like a University of Penn deal. So they're equal in my eyes, how someone looks at little wins and don't just keep their eye on the big trophy.
It's the compound interest philosophy, which is if you increase by 1% a day, a couple of days is not going to look like much of an increase, but a year from now, it's going to be extraordinary, right? It's this idea of like, you got to compound interest off of it. So, all right, let's shift gears to co-working. So yes, let's do it. Co-working. So you decide one day, I'm going to open up co-working in Philadelphia. So my question for you is, number one, how did the idea of like, we need to do co-working pop into your head? And then 2, what made you decide I'm going to get involved in Philadelphia?
Well, you asked me a question a couple of questions back about how I ended up back in Philadelphia. I was out in California playing, and didn't have my biggest contract yet. I was enjoying myself. And I got a phone call. My brother passed away. My older brother passed away December 2010 when he was 28 years old. And it hit our family pretty hard. We're a close-knit family. He's my older brother. He just had a baby girl that was 5 months old. And so I immediately went to the general manager. I got a call on the way to practice. A couple of my buddies were driving, and I said, hey, take me to the front office. Sat with the GM, the owner. They saw in the look in my eyes that it was a serious request for a trade. they first said, just let's fly you home right now, and we'll talk about trades down the road. We'll get you back on the East Coast as soon as possible. I had an offer from Philadelphia team because they understood what was happening, but I got swooped up by a Milwaukee team at that point. And that's kind of I'm sorry, I got scooped back up by a Milwaukee team. I told you I was in Milwaukee when I first bought properties. The coach that really liked me said, "Hey, Ant, I know you can go back home, and we want you to kind of stay focused on what you're doing because we like the trajectory you're on. We're going to intercept your trade." And it didn't go over well. And he goes, "But I'm asking for 3 years of your time because I've been through this." And the coach took me under his wing. He actually lost his brother at a similar age, and he actually invested in me. He's a mentor to me today. He's a commissioner of one of the big leagues in the pro world. He's someone I look up to. And at the time, I was pretty upset that he got involved in the trade. But looking back, it was one of the best things that happened. So he honored his word, and in the third year, he released me to trade me to Philadelphia. During Philadelphia, I was living with my brother in Old City, and my brother Mike, who was finishing up the Navy as a naval officer, was about to ask his girlfriend Jen to marry him. And it just was, lucky that we were all in the same city at the same time and said, "Hey, why don't all three of us build a company? Mike, you're going to transition from the Navy. Jen, you're built to be a CEO and entrepreneur. Finish up your Pepper days because that might help us get real credit and funding since you have the real salary. I'm going to transition as a player because I'm approaching on 30 years old." And the idea was, let's come up with a company idea. And so we would do the whiteboard sessions. We would huddle together and just talk about ideas. And Mike, being my younger brother, also it was nice to be together since our brother passed away. It was one of these things where we knew we had the right personalities together to build a company. And Mike kind of came across a co-working space in Brooklyn called the Makerspace. And he's like, "Damn, this is really cool. What if we did this for lawyers and accountants?" Not that sexy, but in Rittenhouse Square. We're like, "Yeah, we get some really beautiful real estate in Center City." Again, we didn't really know what a startup was. And Mike kind of set the plan. We knew real estate, so we negotiated an unbelievable lease at 17th and Walnut. And again, it goes to timing, right? We found out the landlord was trying to sell the property. Anybody knows commercial real estate, it's a lot better to sell the property when it's full. They had 2 floors available. We said, "We'll take 1 floor, but we're only going to pay this." They said, "Okay." And that kind of started the genesis of Benjamin's Desk. But honestly, in the beginning, it was around the idea of lawyers and accountants, and also that we were going to huddle there and have our own office to build a startup company or to build a company. We didn't even call it a startup, just to build a company.
So I remember the first time I heard about Benjamin's Desk, the coworking, is a couple years into it. So by now, Indie Hall is existing too, a couple spaces in the city. And the way the brand was always presented to me in the early going was kind of like the high quality, more luxurious co-working space, right? The idea of that next level co-working, basically the equivalency of how you compare Apple to Microsoft, where Apple was that next notch up in quality. So I'm curious, it's kind of think it's just the way you guys carried yourselves, number one, with your branding, the idea of we're Benjamin's Desk, the Ben Franklin feel to it, the simplicity in the brand, kind of the people you had in your co-working space. So I'm just curious, was that kind of just naturally happen because of targeting originally accountants and attorneys, or do you think that it just kind of maybe a false misconception, but early on as you guys were growing, it's just kind of what the feel was, the theme of it was?
Dan, Eddie, are you guys familiar with Indie Hall at all?
Yes.
So literally,
yeah, Dan's a Chicago Indian. What are you doing right now, Dan? 1871.
So actually, it's funny. Ironically enough, I hijacked the co-working space Tech Nexus today from our development team, but I'm usually at 1871 for the past 2 years.
Oh, big fans of 1871. Howard Tolman's been in our space a couple different times. There's a lot of smart digital folks out there, man. It's a cool hub.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very hopping place. So definitely, co-working is an interesting experience, to say the least.
Yeah. So Alex Tillman's the founder of Indie Hall. We were living at 3rd and Market, so right down the street from Nerd Street, literally right down the street from Indie Hall. And so we popped in there. We're like, "Damn, this dude!" And he was globally known, believe it or not, because he was I'd say of the thousands of co-working spaces now that exist, he was probably first 10, building a community and building something that was harder than anybody else can do. He's built a family. right? So you're talking about building community is one thing, got to be talented at doing it, but he built a family of loyal people. And we're like, damn, it was fun just to feel the energy when we walked through the space and to really understand what co-working was. And then we pictured co-working just as Indie Hall. And we're like, I don't know, that's not really us. What if we built like corporate co-working? And we're like, we feel like these guys are played out a little bit with their Regis's or their American Executive Centers. Let's build them a cooler space, but still keep the professional level where they feel confident to go into a smaller office. There won't be a ping pong table in the middle of the room, but there'll be a beer kegerator in the shared kitchen. And so we went with that approach. We liked it. We felt like it was a gap in the market as far as everybody wanted to build a community-based co-working space. And so we went with a little bit more of a corporate professional look. What we didn't realize was we were going to inject some of the same principles and values that Alex has built in a way that was our own and in a culture that was our own. And we learned a lot from Alex. I still learn a lot from Alex. I listen to his podcast. He's literally globally known as far as building community. And when you combine the two of being really smart at real estate and being professional because you care about people winning, not just care about people having a good feeling or a good time, I think it's a good form.
So you mentioned, I mean, a lot of influences or a lot of inspiration was drawn from Indie Hall. Have you done like tours of other co-working spaces and taken, little bits and pieces of those? And what are you doing over the last, 4 or 5 years to differentiate your space from some of the other ones? Because there's a ton of them now, and they all kind of have their little like unique personalities, but they all have generally the same kind of vibe.
It's like a restaurant, right? I mean, everybody's got a little different type of chef, different menu. That's why I'm a big believer that it's not really a cannibalization situation. Some people feel like they need a little bit more of a professional environment. Some people want to be heads down in a culture that like Alex is building. That's amazing. Some folks want to be at Regis still because it feels safe. So it's all these restaurants are the best comparable. But to answer your question, I've been to hundreds of co-working spaces. Remember the lessons I learned back in Milwaukee about properties and just caring about my block and my small mile radius. That stays with me. So I've been to every co-working space you can imagine on the East Coast. When I go to Milwaukee, I go to any new co-working space that exists there. When I visit my in-laws, Chicago, I've been to Grind, I've been to 1871, I've been to WeWorks, New York City, I've been to countless number of.
I thought I've been to a lot of co-working spaces. You've been doing the world tour.
Yeah, it's my job. My team likes it too. Anytime my team travels, I say, hey guys,
how often are you going in pretending like you're just someone that needs to work out there for a day, which actually like scouting?
Yeah, two years ago I was like that, and then it got awkward at one location, and I was like, I'm not going to do that again.
I'm no longer a scout.
Yeah, well, they just knew who I was, and I was like, "Mind if I get a tour?" And like, yeah, what are you looking for? What's here? How big your offices are? Maybe a dedicated desk. Don't you have your own desks and offices? And I was like, and so I was like, all right, really heard good things about you guys. This is really, you're right. I should have been straight up with you. I apologize. So if I got to go that route again, I usually send some of my managers, but we don't have to. Everybody's collaborative.
We've all been there, and we've all been there. We used to back in the day. We would contact development companies just to see what their onboarding process would be like, pretending to be like someone as a potential customer. Like, hi, we're interested in building a web app with you guys. Can we get an idea of your rates? Like, and I'm sure people do it to us every day. So, but now a little bit more straight up. In fact, I think you probably do the same thing. Like, I have so many countless friends who are doing literally competitors of ours, right? But, we end up picking each other's brains and our processes and seeing how we can adopt. And even we'll step in and help each other. Like, we'll sometimes take their development work from us, because they need more help and we'll help them and things like that. Like, there's a couple relationships we have. So, yeah, I mean, like, you actually end up getting a lot of beneficials. But early on, you're like, you kind of, especially you come from the competitive world in soccer, it's like, no one's talking about anything, right?
So
yeah, now and it's fun just to see what different menus folks have, how they're trying to offer up their services. My brother, who was leading the ship at Benjamin's desk before I really jumped on, because between playing and Benjamin's desk, I couldn't afford the revenues to come on right away. Mike couldn't afford to leave the Navy right away. Jen couldn't afford to leave Pepper Hamilton. So we hired the best manager we could in Katie Cohen, who's now working with our digital agency of record that handles our marketing, which is awesome. But she was running the ship. Mike was overseeing the vision and direction. And I was with an ed tech company. We just raised $1 million. We were trying to build the next kids technology gym. We were having so much fun with it, but we wound up burning through our cash pretty fast, and timing wasn't on our side there. But as soon as I was able to jump back on and the revenues were coming in for Benjamin's Desk, I took over as the home, and we really started to look at growth and expansion, which I think I do really well.
So I think I mentioned lawyers and accountants was one of the stemming points, but what's like the majority of the companies that live within Benjamin's Desk? I know, like you said, for us, it's a lot of digital companies, but I'm curious to like, what's your audience kind of looking like, or your landscape of companies?
Yeah, good question. So in year one, in month one, remember, we didn't know what a startup was. No one was using that word around us. We just knew about people starting companies and family offices. We didn't know much about a startup. In month one, we get a knock on the door from Uber, and we're like, oh yeah, we heard of Uber. So we started sitting down with their launch team. We're like, yeah, we'll take 2 offices. We only have 3 offices and 32 desks on the 7th floor of 1701. So okay, cool. We're like kicking each other on the table. What do you want to charge Uber? We wound up charging them like the lowest office price we've ever made in our life to get because we didn't know pricing back then either, as we were learning.
Was this before or after their $22 billion valuation?
This is early, man. This was city number 20 something.
Why did you ask for an equity deal, Ant? What were you thinking, man?
No, these are launch teams. These are already proven. They dropped their launch team in, and they just like, we want to be the heart of the city. We'll take an office. They thought we knew co-working and startups, and we really didn't. And we said, oh, we'll give you these 2 offices. We learned a lot by watching them. That kind of got our mindset of like, damn, people know that Uber's out of our office. The next knock on our door, Josh, was Curaleaf. Now, it was a short stay, but they're just backed by first round capital. We start learning about Josh Koppelman, what he's working on. And we're like, dude, we love this. I love the startup mentality, the startup culture. And then I start to dig deeper into the tech ecosystem in Philadelphia. What is the startup ecosystem? What exists right now? What are the resources? Who are the champions? Who's doing what and why? And I did a deep dive about a year deep into this ecosystem and learned a lot of good things, a lot of problem areas, and a lot of fragmentation that we thought we could capitalize on. And so that began this industry agnostic feel to what we wanted to do. So now my mindset was, I'm not just going to sell my 3rd office to an accountant at this point. Let's go after one of these tech companies. Let's go after a big one. And, we started just trying to diverse a little bit. Knowing where we were in Rittenhouse Square, it was always going to be a very industry agnostic location. And so the next company that came through was a lawyer that was thinking a little bit more intelligently around the model and was really leaving a big law firm. And we liked his mindset. Say, hey, I'm a little scared here, but my model is so much different than traditional. I want to do flat rate legal fees. And he's been with us ever since. In fact, I'm sitting right across from his office.
Who are you talking about, if you don't mind me asking?
Capstone Law, Stuart Goodman. He is the CEO of Capstone Law. He's an entrepreneur, though. He came from like a couple $100,000 position, big law firm. And he saw a broken model in regards to how he was servicing some of his clients. And now his retainer model, flat fee, on demand, when you need them, is what a lot of his clients do. And it's fun to see him evolve. In fact, when I look at his sticker on his office right now, he's also the he's the owner of Anytime Fitness Philadelphia, about 5 locations. So an entrepreneur at heart that we fell in love with. So that mindset, we didn't care if you were coming from a venture-backed company or if you just were hungry to go after to build something great.
I feel like a proud dad.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It's cool because when I do our tours, we stop at Capstone, and he has his own story, and he believes in it. He started an office. Next thing you know, he partnered with somebody that took a desk right next door. And those are like the things that we used to use all the buzzwords about, like serendipitous collisions, and we're going to make this synergy happen. And we hate saying that stuff, but now we have like real testimonials from members who have lived it, and now we can just point to them and save us the corniness of saying something that everybody's sick of hearing.
So
good.
You guys are about building a network. Are you part of a network of smaller locations? Or because when I was traveling across the states, I went to a few different independent co-working spaces that were part of a larger network, but it wasn't well known. And I think that's kind of an issue, is that if they're part of these networks, they need to make that more clear. And are you guys planning to do that? Or are you trying to build just?
Yeah, so in year one, before we were thinking about real growth, remember I was finishing up with an ed tech company. Mike was in the Navy. Jen was at Pepper Hamilton. We said, well, we were happy with the one location, make an impact there. We're still learning. we immediately aligned with another group called Lexi. It's kind of a weird name, League of Extraordinary Co-working Spaces. It's a bit corny. Now we just call it Lexi.
Oh, you know what? That might be the one that I'm thinking of. It was a weird name.
What's the name of this co-working space?
This was a small place in Seattle or Portland. I can't remember.
Yeah, so there's like 30 locations nationally right now, part of Lexi. And so that means our members could go from our Benjamin's desk and work from Grind, New York, or Grind, Chicago, or any of the locations out in California that are affiliated with Lexi. We pay a fee, but then we just get a weekly phone call to see what's happening nationally. And we loved hearing it because we were new, and they were new because it was a new industry, and everybody was just saying what's best ideas, best practices, and then just really helped our members grow. Now, to be honest with you, most of the members were using DC 1776 or New York. Sometimes go to Boston as well, but it was still like that access. And then the big dog came, WeWork, and they started to exploit a real network and say, hey, big companies, scaling companies, use us. We're the entrepreneur hub that Regis can't be.
How do you think that came together? Like, how do you think WeWork took over so quickly? Did they just have a ton of capital and they just invested in a lot of real estate?
Unbelievable timing in the only market that can actually begin to scale, New York City. You can't afford your own commercial space. Everybody knows the rates are ridiculous. It's hard. And so it was the perfect model to disrupt. They saw that Regis and some of the big executive players were having great traction. They own all the market share. And this entrepreneur, Adam Newman, who had some connections to some capital, but literally impressed another proven commercial real estate investor in Mort Zuckerman. And Mort said, hey, you know what? I believe in you. I'm going to inject capital into your business. I want you to take over 4 or 5 of my properties. And it just happened. And he went from a 3,000 square foot location like us into an empire. You never know when people come through a space what's going to happen. A lot of lessons came out of that as far as listening to Adam speak. The thing that I loved was understanding that network's important. But the thing that I thought that there was a failure point as a big company like that scales is the level of engagement. How hyper-connected can Adam Newman be in Philadelphia or in DC if he's just dropping teams in there that are talking about space? So my real estate guys call it a space arbitrage. I think it's genius. I love being in their spaces. I'm a member as well. Some people don't know that, Josh.
I had no idea. I had no idea.
I get inspired when I go into a WeWork because it feels social. It feels like the first physical social network that exists.
Lobby is open to the public for free co-working, right?
Yeah, I mean they're taking over. I think they partnered with La Cologne, and so now like a coffee shop that you're sitting in, Eddie, is something that they understand is a need for the type of coworker we want to go after. It's a proven model. It's a cool social feel.
And it's really happening at the perfect time because of this like remote working revolution, right? Like there's a ton of people that are realizing I can do my job from anywhere. And like it's like a buzzword, right? The digital nomad is like a huge buzzword now, but it's perfectly timed with this co-working. And I guess that's filling the need for it.
Well, I want to go into this for a second, which is like even like, for example, make office, stuff like that, where I start seeing they're offering like 20-person, 30-person, 40-person offices, co-working spaces now. And like this is becoming more of a norm. It's where we are going just as like the corporate world, the business world, going to, instead of having skyscrapers and everyone buys from the buildings directly, it's just one giant building of co-working where everyone can just work out of the same basically brand. Do you think that's where the marketplace is going? Like where's co-working now taking off to? Where's that next step?
Great question, man. So again, I'm blessed with a team that are proven commercial expertise in real estate. Josh, you probably saw Ed O'Brien at the event last night. He's built brokerages for some of the biggest brands and names nationally. Quick story that's interesting. He came through our doors to become a member. Ed's 65, came through our doors as a member. He's like, so many young guys in this space. I don't know if I can be a member here, Anthony, but this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And he was already talking about national and this. So he was a different boomer. I mean, this guy was like just the way he was talking. And so I said, hey, can I ask you personally? Tell me a little bit about you. And he started talking and grew up in Philadelphia, Irish guy. You can just tell he's just like a Philadelphia typical guy.
Blue collar.
Blue collar, but still like super sharp. And yeah. And then we start talking. And here's the craziest part, man. He goes, yeah, I went to LaSalle College High School. I was like, whoa, time out. How old are you? He's like 65. I was like, Ed, my father went to LaSalle College High School. My father's 65. He goes, what's your father's name? I'm like, John Maher. He's like, John Maher. It's like, Johnny Maher? I'm like, hold on, I'm calling my dad. It's like, get my dad on the phone. I'm like, Dad, I'm sitting across from a guy that went to LaSalle College High School. He thinks you're the Johnny Maher he was next to in homeroom. His name's Ed O'Brien. He said, OB? I was like, I call you OB? He's like, yeah. He's like, give me the phone. So they start connecting. I'm like, damn. I was like, yeah, well, Ed. So Ed's like, what are you guys doing? I see you got 3,000 square feet. It's not a lot of square footage. I'm used to dealing with 100,000 square feet. What are you guys doing? We kind of gave him our mission. We said, hey, we learned a lot. This was about 1.5 years ago. So at our midpoint of what we've learned, we said there's a fragmented ecosystem of real estate guys. We build culture pretty well in community. We want to help the entrepreneur. And he's like, this is the way work is going. We're seeing it. We're seeing landlords start thinking differently about their spaces, but they really don't know what the next step is. There's a lot of folks in limbo. Why don't I sit with you guys, go to lunch tomorrow? And then that lunch turned into a dinner.
Would you call this a serendipitous collision?
No, because Ed would call me out. Ed doesn't want to use those type of words. Ed wants to call it paradigm. Like, this is going to be a shift, and we're going to win. And so Ed was talking about competitor. Ed is a true competitor, and that led to me saying, Ed, any chance you want to be a part of the team? I can't afford whatever Keller Williams paying you right now, but I am willing to talk about long term and talk about how I'm building an enduring company, and I want you a part of it, not just on salary based, but on equity based as well. Sometimes, Josh, and I know I hate throwing equity out so fast to somebody, but when you feel that this guy is going to change your model, you already know there's a warm intersection with someone that he grew up with. We made that bold step to say, we want you part of the team. We want to give you equity in the company.
Are you worry at all that that's going to be off-putting to some people? Like, to offer them equity very quickly like that, maybe.
Yeah, we don't do that often. Usually we'll date really slow.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's usually the second or third day, right?
Yeah. But it was, let's say it was about, that was September, right after Thanksgiving. So 2 months. It's not a long dating, man. And we wanted to get in bed with Ed. By that point, Ed's already made some huge introductions and was already talking about the real change in co-working. We had an idea. We had our own point of view around it that we thought we were in the right direction on. But literally the opportunity now, fellas, isn't to try to compete with the WeWork and just talk about space and making it cool. It's going to the folks that own these beautiful buildings, the buildings that are being repurposed into Class B buildings or Class C, right? You see the trophy buildings like Comcast, and then the next level is Class A. That's like the old trophy buildings that are now Class A. If you've been to 1701 Walnut Street, it's the Allman building. It's labeled a Class B building in commercial real estate space. Class B and Class C can be repurposed in a really unique way. And these building owners know something's happening, but they're so stuck in their old ways that they're like, well, I'll just take rent. I don't know anything else to do. Pay me rent, pay me market rent. Show me how long of a lease you're going to take. And now we go to the landlords and say, hey, if you want these guys like Chop Dog and Technically Philly and Bandar Foods and Philly Startup Leaders in your space, we can draw them here, which could be a lift for your other portfolio and your other square footage in your building. And so we played the lift card. And, we were making an assumption, but we felt really strong about if you put a Benjamin's desk in 1 million square feet, give us 20,000 square feet in 1 million square feet, that will create a positive lift for them to leverage and to bring other type of companies into the space. And the awesome part, that assumption came true, and we feel like that's the opportunity going forward. It's not to be scooped up by a private equity firm, because we've been approached several times to go after WeWork and go after them regionally and nationally. It's not to go to second-tier markets and say WeWork won't come here, so let's be the best WeWork type company, because that's space arbitrage. It's really to look at the real estate as an opportunity and being hyper-local in greater Philadelphia and say, cool, I'm going to beat them in members anyway because I'm competitive. On my mirror at home, my wife hates it. I have 10,000 written down on my mirror because every day I want to look at, I want to go after it. I want to have 10,000 members.
Was it a permanent Sharpie that you can't erase?
It was her lipstick, which she got really pissed about. That's my craziness in me.
So actually,
that's the opportunity.
So that's actually perfect. So I've been wanting to ask this. So 10,000. Well, actually, first, how close are we at the 10,000? Where's the bar reading out right now?
So we're at 500 members right now.
Okay.
By the end of this year, we'll have 1,000 guaranteed members because of the spaces we just announced. We're at 100. We started at 3,000 square feet. We're at 110,000 square feet, 5 locations and a mini location that's only about 3,000 square feet. So you could say 6 locations, but we usually market 5 locations. And to your point, more freelancers, more corporations are thinking through it, more companies like Josh's that are like want to attract and retain talent, think it's the economical way to work around a culture that can draw the right type of talent.
So I was going to ask more, more specifically to growing to that 10,000. I think it's obvious, there's a certain point now where you're living off of brand equity, word of mouth. You guys have the reputation, and that helps drive more people. What does biz dev look like outside of that? Like you guys, I know you're not, cold emailing thousands of companies like, hey, come to this new co-working space. Like what does it mean to grow to that level? Or what are we doing outside of, again, that current level of brand equity that you own?
So we paused for a couple months. The big move and announcement we made last night was that Jennifer Maher, my sister-in-law, is going to come on board as our co-CEO. And so we said, well, this isn't just strategic to scale faster. Let's pause and build an infrastructure that's going to be sound and enduring. And so processes, automations, reporting, get away from any of the $5 an hour work that can knock you down and just consume you, and automate our business and look at it in a way to make sure things are sound and structured, because we want to ramp up. I want to take over a new space every quarter. I want to go after more universities every year. I want to talk about corporations and distributed workforce. Before we get there, we want to have a structure, our playbook, our reporting, everything tuned in the right way to allow us to have success so things don't crumble. And my team, we talk about collateral duty mainly because maybe my brother Mike was a former military lieutenant, and he was a big believer in having always a plan B, a plan C, and always having collateral duty. You're going to do this for your mission, but you're also going to be wearing this hat. And so my team has owned that really well. And, that's allowed us to kind of scale as fast as we are right now.
What's been your guys' biggest struggle, would you say, that you've had to overcome?
Being a company that's not capitalized, right? So this is a really interesting story of, we didn't come from a lot of money. We were making good decisions as far as, I made some money playing soccer. Mike had a guaranteed income from the Navy, doing really well. Jen was at Pepper Hamilton, making good money. And we didn't come from like family money. And co-working being a new industry, banks didn't really understand it. They didn't really understand, what do you mean you're going to lease space and then lease it again for short-term flexible lease terms? No, we don't get it. Well, and what's funny, and you guys know this, when you first give a business plan to a bank to capitalize you, it's actually easy. They're supposed to be helping small businesses like us get on the map and go. But when you hit year 2, when you need more capital to grow, they don't like the model. They don't like the projections. They want to talk in real numbers. And it becomes a little bit more difficult. It's a problem that we're hoping to even help address in Philadelphia, as far as companies like ours having access to capital. That's non-traditional companies, and tech companies tend to be that way. And so we said, well, we're not just going to sit here and die and wait for a bank to fall in love with us, or wait for 2 years until they understand what co-working is. Let's fuel our growth with a unique brokerage. And so, being kind of real estate guys, we said, well, how hard is it to take the brokerage test? Let's go get our license. Let's become commercial brokers and just get our license. And next time we do a deal, that money stays in-house. And so we got our license, and our next location was the Curtis Center. We said, we're going to broker the deal ourselves. We don't need a realtor or a commercial broker holding our hand. And it was clunky a bit, right? We weren't asking the right things. Our documentation wasn't as clean as they maybe expected. But I think that allowed us to fuel our growth. And so every location since, that working capital, that brokerage that we created called First Base, fueled our growth, brought in bottom line capital. That was working capital that helped the big deposits that we had to put down, and it really helped fuel our growth. So that strategic move to say, let's not wait, let's be proactive, let's take out the middleman and become our own broker. And we were really good at it. And the cool thing, that business unit, Josh, you saw it on the screen yesterday, that now evolves into our business saying, hey, companies, grow out of our space. Don't stay forever. Grow. We'll represent you in the marketplace, which also creates a business unit that's now sustainable, not just fueling our growth because we own the brokerage, but now helping companies grow and really making more money as our own brokerage that's known for helping startups.
Can you dive into that more? I'm curious because they have a very similar mantra at 1871 where before they expanded, which they just had an expansion recently, it was companies were supposed to be there maybe about a year, a little bit over a year, and the idea was exactly that, is growing out. So like once they get past that stage, at least these type of companies, what are you guys kind of helping them do or pushing them towards to help them kind of continue to develop?
Yeah, so we like to call soft incubation, right? So, and this really only emerged maybe year 3. We got to know the entrepreneur, we got to see the fragmented ecosystem, and then we said, well, cool, we're good at culture and community building. Big check, right? So it's a big checkbox. People feel good about it. They like us. They trust us. What else can we really do to help entrepreneurs? Because I don't want to sell on the sell and say, hey, we're here to help. What are we doing to really help? What are your programs? What are your growth services? Connections and introductions. Okay, we're good at that. But what's the next level? And the next level really was looking at growth services and saying, let's take you under our wing. And so a business unit that Josh is familiar with is Benjamin's Dev. And so when people start coming through and want to be an entrepreneur, they had an idea. And right away I said, well, let's help them figure out their idea. Let's help them go from back a napkin idea to a prototype. And this is new. And I said, this is going to be cool. Let's build a dev shop. There's good money in a dev shop. People are coming through with ideas. Not only can we build their prototype, but we also give them space. So I tapped the best technologists I could find in my ecosystem, found a leader like Ashish Patel to kind of lead it and understand the technology and say, hey, this is a cool growth service. This is going to be great. Well, we made good money. We built some prototypes. It was fun. We got to learn a lot. I really enjoyed it. But what I learned was we were stepping on a lot of people's toes that were in our space. Other dev shops were like, hey, Ant, we came here because we wanted the referrals. We wanted you to point to us and say, we're your go-to. And so Ash, who I'm a big fan of, who was always looking out for the entrepreneur, said, hey, Ant, keep making money, or why don't we pause and change the model in a way that could be beneficial for the community long-term? And I was like, show me what you're talking about, build the model, show me it. And he created this model. Benjamin's Devs now like this funnel. So we have access to guys like Chop Dog and say, hey, you're the best at building this. Let's ask you to define what your best services are and leverage all of our dev shops in a unique way where we'll push them to be quality, deliver the type of service and experience, but make margin on the opportunity as well. Might not be the big margin like we were used to, but we'll make the 20-25% margin on what we outsource to the other dev shops in our business, and they enjoy it. It's a win-win all around. Sometimes Ash sits down with most people and creates a discovery package for them and says, hey, maybe you shouldn't build this technology. Why don't you go further in your customer development or talk with this entrepreneur in residence for Benjamin's Desk that might help you shape the idea before you drop $20,000 or $40,000 on an app that you might not want to build. And so that's been kind of like a good sounding board for a lot of entrepreneurs. And I think that a lot of them respect it.
I don't know if other co-working space have, the ones I've been connected to don't, but to me that is a huge differentiator if you guys are one of the few that offer that, because I'm sure Josh will agree, that's huge. Like giving that consulting level of work to give you guys on the right footing and then making sure you're giving them that alignment to the right people. That's a huge win especially for the ill experience.
Well, I want to know is like, you're kind of taking that next step into becoming like a 30,000 foot view incubator in a co-working space. So it's kind of like you're kind of merging the two together. Like, do you think there's a boundary between the two still? Like, is there a point where maybe you guys turn into like, we're going to even invest in some of the companies? Like maybe, hey, we'll give you free co-working for a year. In return, we get 5 points of equity off of you guys based upon your revenue. Like, have you guys decided like those type of opportunities or that type of round might be something you want to consider as well? Especially since from a real estate background, you guys get especially how assets can increase significantly real quick.
Yeah, I love how quick you guys got that concept too. It took us a while to even figure out that opportunity. I guess we right away we say, well, we're cool with doing things that do not scale. We're cool with doing things that don't scale. Everybody would say, make sure it's scalable. Is that scalable? We're like, well, screw it. Let's keep doing things that don't scale and help in any way we can. And that kind of defined us as not just a local player or mom and pop shop, which we both hated to hear, but just to say we're hyper connected, man, to the right people. And you know, we started to have entrepreneurs in residence. What is an entrepreneur in residence other than a member that's been there, has an unbelievable experience, and that's willing to put his time in his office hours to help members? And I have like 4 or 5 of these go-to guys that I can tap and say, hey, you might sit with this entrepreneur and just let it be a sounding board. And now we do it on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. We're sitting down with the right type of people in the ecosystem to help folks. And so that got us thinking about soft incubation. It's not hard incubation where I'm taking equity, but we think there's going to be another transition period as we gain more experience as a team, as I fill in a chief incubator officer, which I'm going after and I want to find. Then we're going to say, how can we be helpful? Cool, we have space. Don't pay for space. We'll take equity. We'll inject some capital. We'll provide you with resources and pathway. And we're having these conversations now, which I'm excited about. We never wanted to fake it though. And early on, you sit across people and they're saying, hey, what if we give you equity? What if you were put on our board? And we were just like, it was enticing, it was sexy, but we said, well, not yet. How can we be helpful in it?
Well, I do think this, because we don't take equity at ChopDog, right? Like most of our clients, well, not most, all of our clients are paying customers. You know, we have the agency model. The second you accept equity once, you become an investment firm, which means that you have a completely different approach in everyone you talk to. Now, if you turn down someone to an equity deal, they're going to remember that when the person working to the right of them is working on an equity deal. So it opens up a whole new can of worms and favoritism and capitalism. And, you know, it can get very, very messy. Like, I feel like to be effective in that model, and one of the reasons why we don't do this is because once you do it, you have to go all in. You can't go half and half and pretend like it works, right? And the issue is, and I think you know this better than most, the second you just divide up your attention or have doing multiple things of that are like alienating your main model, your company is going to falter, right? Because you're no longer executing at what is most important or what is key to your success or your previous success.
That's right. That's right. Now, that's not to say there can't be a progression to our growth services.
Totally.
So first base, the real estate one's an easy one. It's physical. It's transactional. You need new space, we'll find it for you. We'll get you the furniture partner. We'll give you the fastest Comcast partner, give you the pricing. We'll give you the HR team as you're growing. That's transactional. We can own that really well. It's proven out by other spaces. We will do that. Benjamin's Dev, that's easy. It's almost like connecting dots, but now we're getting paid off the growth service because we're connecting them to the right dot. Ash will take their application. We'll really understand what their needs are, challenge them to be more clear about their need, and then connect them with the right people. And we'll make margin off that growth service. My next growth service will be around business development and also around how they can go to market and have a stronger strategy. And we like those lanes. And again, it's friendly, it's real. You can be transparent. You can say, hey, I don't know how to get there. And they're cool with that. And so that's fun to kind of grow that way. That allows us to have some wins.
How often do you guys do like town halls? I'm curious about this. What's your community? Like, how often are you guys like getting town hall, getting everyone in the community together and getting them to contribute? Like having them like say, we want this with Benjamin's desk, or hey, we need help with this. Any companies in our space can help with this. Like, I'm curious, like how often you guys do that?
So Slack obviously helps day-to-day in the moment communication with any members.
So you guys have like universal Slack.
So stereotypical. Everybody with Slack.
So is there like one Slack channel for everyone at Benjamin's desk then?
Yeah, I mean we have location-based Slack channels and general Slack channels that you can cross-connect.
I wish we had that. That is such a great communication tool for keeping in sync with people. I love that.
Yeah, and then the data that comes off it, right? You're seeing how your members are engaging, direct messages, the amount of weekly engagement. How do you spur conversation? How do you manufacture the right people to meet each other? That stuff goes a long way. I mean, other than that, Josh will do like monthly lunches, monthly happy hours. I'll do a bi-weekly Junto, which is, you know, playing on the Ben Franklin name, which gets pretty old, but we do it anyway.
Wait, what is that? Oh, I'm not a Philadelphia guy. You got to tell me what that is.
What Ben Franklin is?
I know. Oh no, I've never heard of it. Yeah, I know that part. You bring Ben Franklin? I don't know. What is it?
That's right. Ben Franklin used to run Juntos. He would call it, just surrounding himself with smart people in his area. Obviously, he was the king of inventors and entrepreneurs, and he would always surround himself with the right people. He'd call it Junto. Let's have a Junto before he would make any of his critical decisions. Huh. Our conference room is called Junto on the 7th floor here. Again, a little played out with the Ben Franklin stuff, but we like the concept behind it. And so twice a month we'll get together with members and say, hey, come in from 10:30 to 12 or 12 to 2 and just meet other members and talk about your pain point, pitch to them, get real member-to-member feedback. I can always make an introduction to the sexiest VC or institutional VC or angel, and that's cool, and you feel cool. Oh, yeah, I can introduce you. But the best access is member-to-member, man. When members start talking with each other and say, I'm trying to solve for that right now. I'm trying to go from $1 million top-line revenue to 10 million, and I'm lost in how to do it. How have you gotten there? Member interaction, and if we can manufacture that in a way, that's my Junto.
How often are you monitoring your members' growth of their companies? Do you like collect data every year and like, hey, what was your annual revenue? What your projections are? How many employees you have? Like, or is there certain data you just won't collect because obviously it's their data and they don't have to give it to you? Like, how much do you guys leverage that or ask for that?
Yeah, awesome question. I wish we thought about this in year 1 and year 2 because we were just going with the flow. Now we measure everything. So when you onboard, we want to know, when we sit with you your first month as you become a member, we kind of grab your pulse and just say, where are you at? How many members do you have? What does your revenue look like? What are you raising right now? How much money have you currently raised? You can see how that can be important on the marketing side. So come October, Josh, when Pennovation is up and running, and probably by the end of the year, you'll hear data coming out of our camp of 10 million. There's companies in our space have raised $10 million this year alone. Or companies have hit top line revenue of over $1 million 25 times this quarter. And those type of that type of data is important for us to leverage to tell their story, but also to help shape what's happening in Philadelphia in a unique way. So data is king. And so when we look at onboarding, when we look at our monthly meetings with our members to get their pulse, our quarterly member meeting updates, and track everything we learn from them, it helps us engage day to day, whether they're just, want a desk that stands up or is a working desk, or they really want to meet someone to help them choose what the best accelerator is for them, and they need to meet the right people. And we track that. How many introductions have we made? We try to track how many introductions my community managers make. And so like a CRM you use to sell, we use a CRM to engage. Don't tell too many people that. But that's how we track our engagement, because it's measurable. I can go into my CRM right now, ProsperWorks, and say, pull up 1701 Walnut and saying, when was the last interaction we had with our 200 members at this location, and see in real time who's doing what introduction was made, and why.
Are you guys always so data driven early on?
No. We wish we were 2 years ago. We lost a lot of data. We clung to the big data, like venture-backed companies coming through. We know how much money they raised. We would shout that to the rooftop. We didn't care about top-line revenue for certain companies. We were just getting our feet underneath us. We try to go back and track and talk to some relationships that we had and try to grab it. But going forward, our onboarding process allows us to track seamlessly. So understanding where they're at. Ash and I came up with something that we may use. Some people say it's too harsh, but I feel like it's very real for entrepreneurs, that when you come into Benjamin's desk, you're going to get your vitamins whether you want it or not. Your vitamins are here. You're going to get them. Welcome to Benjamin's desk.
Vitamin B?
Yeah, hopefully you like it.
Vitamin BD.
Cool. That's for BD. And then we're going to give you any type of aspirin you need to solve for your pain. We're really going to try to find out what you're trying to solve for, what pain you have, and prescribe the right aspirin. And then down the road, if there's a way to incubate you in a way to really get our hands around you and put you in our growth services, then we're going to do that. So vitamins, aspirin, incubation. Some of my team knocked it down because it felt like it was too medical and too harsh. But I like it because that feels real. If you're afraid to say there's pain, if you're afraid to say entrepreneurs are facing pain, we're probably in the wrong market.
So one of my big things that I'm curious about is with all this growth. I mean, I was just at the event yesterday with all these spaces opening up pretty much at the same time, which is crazy to be on its own. How do you expect to be able to balance all that? Like, how have you guys been preparing to balance like this influx of square footage, spaces, marketing, advertising, events, new members? Like, how are you like A, mentally preparing and B, physically planning for such quick growth?
Well, I might need a stat check here, but I think I remember back in the day, someone used to tell me that you have 86,400 seconds in a day, and how you use those seconds are critical. I believe in that, so I'm not trying to work 15 to 20-hour days like we have before, but we're willing to do that if we have to. I think Jen coming on board brings such a layer of operational excellence that'll allow us to scale fast and efficient. I can't tell you. I said this at the event. One of our biggest anchor tenants over at the Curtis Center is Technically Philly and Technically Media, where they have their headquarters. And for some of you guys that don't know, Technically Media, they are the voice of anything happening in Philadelphia's tech ecosystem. And so it was a big deal to get them as a tenant. Well, as you know, under promising and over delivering is pretty important. I promised them they'd be in the space at a certain time, and I was about 2 to 3 months, sometimes even longer than I projected out. And so that hit me pretty hard. It hurt my reputation a bit with them. The cool part is we owned it, and going forward, we were able to kind of correct that issue with other team members stepping up and saying, hey, I'm going to take on this responsibility for you. I'm going to take on procurement of anything that needs to go in this space. And so my team has stepped up and created this process that I feel is a machine now. And so when I'm opening up 2 new locations in October, everything is on time. It's so weird. In real estate, people always say, oh, you better double what it's going to cost you, double your timeline. We hated hearing that, but I learned it the hard way at the Curtis Center. Going forward, we are cranking because we have plan A and plan B on all of our Gantt charts, and we're pushing it along, and we're being very efficient with how we communicate and also efficient in what our processes look like. Jen's created that. Executing on it, to Dan's question earlier, it's been very organic. It's been very organic. Companies coming through, started with Uber, and it's never stopped as far as people knowing who we are. We're not going to rely on that organic growth. One of my favorite entrepreneurs in Philadelphia, his name is Patrick Baines. He was originally with LinkedIn when they had he was employee number 106. They have 8,000 members, 8,000 employees now. And so literally you cut Patrick in half, you'll see LinkedIn DNA in him. Super smart, young like you guys, been around. He built a company, raised several $1 million
I think he just favorited my tweet like an hour ago, one of my tweets.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's the man. He's literally, different type of mindset. I've learned a lot from watching Patrick, how he interacts, how he builds culture, how he wins. He built a company called People Links, raised, I think, $2.5 million, stepped down as CEO to continue to be the founder, but built another company. Patrick being a member here, we got to know him through Startup Grind, and we've been friends since. And he came to us about 3 months ago and said, hey, guys, you're growing. Huh? What are you guys doing for your growth? We said, we're going to work, send email blasts out, do social media campaigns, leverage members, tell stories. He goes, look, I'm creating something called Update Central. I can get you more leads faster, and very transparent. And you know how you get pitched sometimes by people and you're like, oh, this dude's up to something. What's his agenda? How much is it going to cost? We already know. I told Patrick, I'm in. If you're saying you have a tool that's going to help us and a model that's proven and you're running it, we're in. And so when Patrick Bain said he's willing to help, that's just the type of members we have in our space. And from day one, we leaned on our members. I think 5 years from now, the story will remain the same. Our members are helping us carry and grow.
So I want to know is, how do you handle now, having 2 CEOs, but now 3 CEOs running Benjamin's desk? Because obviously that's very unorthodox approach. You see,
what do you mean 3 CEOs?
Isn't there 3? Am I wrong?
No, Mike, 2. I've never heard of 3 CEOs. That would be
well, isn't Jen now also?
Yes, so me, Jen, and myself.
Gotcha. So wait, which is Mike then? What's Mike's a CEO?
So remember when I came on board, I took over CEO from Mike.
Gotcha.
Mike stepped down as chairman to build his real estate tech company, which is doing really well. It's called Hauser. And it's a full service brokerage that sells homes for free using tech enabled software to service the online client that's buying and selling homes. So Mike's literally out of all day to day. I think Mike, again, like Patrick, is one of the top entrepreneurs in this region. He was groomed, as I was groomed as a soccer player for my parents, Mike was groomed as a leader. Mike's leadership skills are unmatched. Since he's drove billion-dollar ships for the Navy, he's always been a navigator in his approach. And so Mike's cast the vision. He challenges us to push his vision. And Jen and I will execute on where we're at today and making sure we're understanding where this business is going. But Mike sits as the chairman, but also runs his own company called House.
So how are you guys going to balance just co-CEOs? Like, how are you going to handle that dynamic?
Operator.
Yeah, I think
operator and a visionary, or is Mike the vision? You're both operators.
Yeah, I think Mike's vision is on par. We give him the pulse day to day and tell him what we're seeing ahead of my whole team, not just myself and Jen. Ed, Adam, Shelton, they easily could be more of a CEO fit than myself and Jen. So we have rock stars around us all day that add to the vision and the North Star of what we want to achieve. How Jen and I will coexist is really simple. There's 2 components to Benjamin's desk, really. There's real estate and hospitality. You got to come in the space and it has to work. The spoon room has to be acoustically fit out the right way. It's got to be the right size. You got to have the right internet speed. You got to have the right function of the space, or at the end of the day, it's not going to work for any entrepreneur. And then our mission to really differentiate is the engagement and growth services and programming. And that's what I'm going to own, is looking at entrepreneurs where you're at. How can we be helpful? How can I care more about them winning than us winning day to day? And it's hard to pull yourself away from that. But wearing that cheerleader hat, that coach hat, that advisor, mentor hat, whatever hat it needs to be, we will wear it and wear it with pride. I think I can do that better than anybody because I've lived my dream of being a professional soccer player. I wanted to be that since I was a small junior, asked to be skipped from my all-star game. And so when I achieved that dream, that allows me to look at other people's dreams and make them the champion of that dream, and hopefully allow them to taste what I tasted in chasing my dream. So existing with Jen as co-CEO isn't going to change much. I think it's going to fuel and multiply everything we're currently doing.
What does your day-to-day look like now, especially with opening multiple new locations? Like, give us a run through what time you're waking up, what time you're going to bed, and everything that's happening in between on an average day.
Did you meet my wife yesterday, Josh, or no?
No, I don't believe so. No.
I should have intro. My it's any entrepreneur knows it's always tough on the family as far as the amount of hours you put in, whether it's your extended family or your wife and kids. So I'm conscious of that. It's hard to say. It's hard to say I'm putting work in, and when I'm home, I'm home. When I'm at work, I'm at work. But I feel like I'm always turned on 24/7. Whether that's good or bad, that's been how I've been wired my whole life. My wife gets that. My kids get it, but I don't know if it's good enough yet or not good enough or good enough. And so I'm always conscious of what that looks like because obviously I'm a big family guy. And so, I look at my calendar and I try to be really smart about how I'm going to do every day, whether that's physically, mentally, or just executing on the tasks that need to be done. So I guess my biggest growth as a CEO has been owning my calendar in a unique way to allow me to have success day to day, but also to carve out time and make my family part of my business in a way where I'm having lunch with them. I'm leaving work for an hour to go teach my kid how to kick a ball or shoot a basket. And has proven the biggest dividend of all. My marriage has never been as great as it's been right now. My kids enjoy it. They make little jokes like, "Dad, you're not going to BD? Like, why are you home so early from BD?" And then when they go to sleep, I spend time with the wife. Now I'm back to work. I'm fortunate enough that I only need 5 hours of sleep. Josh, I don't know all the stuff that's out there right now about that's not good or that it is good. I've always had 5 hours of sleep my whole life, so I'm not going to change it now. It's almost habitual. And so getting in bed before 2 o'clock and getting up at 7 a.m. is my routine. If I go to bed like at 11 for whatever reason, I feel worse than I do when I go to bed like 1:30 or 2 o'clock.
Do you live in the city or do you live outside the city?
We live in the city. My kids go to school in the city. I live in Graduate Hospital, 19th and Christian. Mike lives at 16th and Catherine in Graduate Hospital. My parents were up last night at the event, talking them into moving to the city. Big family guy. They get that we're putting a lot of time in, and I think the greatest thing my greatest takeaway yesterday came from my wife, who really got to see the breadth of what we're trying to build, and from my parents who understand now the impact potential we have on the city of Philadelphia. And they said, "You know what? Keep doing what you're doing." My wife even said, "That was amazing. I get all the hours that you put in. I get your phone being connected to you 24/7. This is going to be pretty special, and we're proud to be a part of it." So, that stuff matters, man. You get beat up sometimes when you put hours in where, you see, some of your other friends and entrepreneurs going on vacation longer than you may. We're going to get there. The reason what we're doing now is to control our destiny, to have autonomy in the future, to be a great family.
It's really exciting to see the people around you realize and see your vision that you've seen.
Yeah, it's fun. It is, because sometimes you guys know you can be a lonely entrepreneur. People don't know what you're doing. They don't know why you're doing it. They don't get it. My wife even said to me, "He's like, I don't think my in-laws have a clue what you do. I think they think you just rent out like a commercial broker space." And that was cool for her to see, because I don't really think she understood it either, the quality of entrepreneurs we have in our space and how we want to be helpful in any way possible. And you get beat up. You get beat up by bench. You get beat up by poor member experience at times. And it's cool to have that moment of gratification. I don't expect it to last. I want to work at everything we're currently doing, because you guys know it's the ebbs and flows of what we go through. But it's nice to hear that. And
it's all about dealing with his highs and his lows, man. That's one of the things we were open about this year. Is at one point we had like a month of like, what are we doing? And then the next month you're like, we've never had a better month in history, and like back-to-back months. And sometimes you'll have that. It's absolutely crazy. It's literally a roller coaster. There's no other way to summarize.
Yeah, I've seen my dad. I see my dad handle highs and lows. He was the youngest police chief in New Jersey, and we were always proud of that. My youngest brother got locked up for drinking and driving and killing somebody and served 5 years. I've always seen my dad's emotional level at the highs and lows, and it was always very even keeled. And, that stuck with us about, let's not get too excited. 2 new locations. Okay, let's not get too excited. How are we going to execute on it? So there's a lot of life lessons that grew from our family upbringing that we carry today as entrepreneurs, not just me, Jen, and Mike, but my whole team has these type of stories.
What does the word greatness mean to you?
Greatness means to me a lot of small things done right consistently.
What do you want your legacy to be?
We talk about that a lot, our North Star. We want to be known as, you hear companies that want to be impact companies. We did a workshop for 8 hours one day as a team. Just what's our mantra? What's our boilerplate? What do we be known for? And it was equal to our personal goals as well, about making impact and as many entrepreneurs and companies as possible in Greater Philadelphia. And we felt like that was very achievable. And so when we look back 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I could see Mike being the mayor of Philadelphia, even though it won't go over well. Mayor. It might have to be called Mayor Mike or something. He's going to struggle with that last name. But, I could see his aspirations. I could see us impacting thousands and thousands of members and companies that will propel us in a position to just have better influence in Philadelphia that's positive, that disrupts not just the politics of Philadelphia, but just the overall corporate culture and entrepreneurship ecosystem in general. So that's what I'm hoping our legacy is, being that we play a part in that.
When you hear the word successful, what's the first thing you think of?
When I hear the word successful, what's the first thing I think of? I feel like successful is never reached because you should be always striving. That's why nothing really popped in my head. Like, I feel
so
like,
maybe let me reword it. When you think of an entity or person successful, what's the first entity or person that pops in your head?
Yeah, it's someone that's resilient. It's not the BD logo. It's like the BD member behind the logo. It's like that blank face of that member that's putting in hours where no one else is watching. But we have security cameras. So when I get a notification at 1 a.m, and I'm gonna check who's working at 1 a.m, where I just got a notification that a door open, and I see the team. I get so inspired by that, man. And
It's
not that
it's actually really funny you bring that up. So you can't see it, but right behind me, it's the skyline view of Center City, right? I see all the buildings.
Okay.
And I can't tell you how many times it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'm working and I see that one office light on. And I basically say, F you, I'm not stopping work till I see your light turn off first. Of course,
No doubt.
I did that one night. I did it, and I picked one night. They didn't turn off the light the whole night. They probably weren't in there and left it on. So knowing my luck, but
it's one of our locations. The notification gets hit because it's like right by a parking lot garage, and so lights shining into the space will hit it. I don't check all the time. I just mentally I'm thinking, yep, someone's working. Are we still trying to drive toward that level of success by putting in more work than anybody else? So it's fun to kind of challenge yourself on that level.
What do you think motivates you? Like, what is that internal factor that gives you the most motivation to do what you do every day?
It's finding small wins in every day. Finding small wins in every day.
Let's go one step deeper, which is why do you have that drive to have small wins every day? Like, what is that outlier that causes you to have that outlook?
So I guess I lived it on the sports side of things. You only know what you know, right? You only know what you know. And I was a big believer that you can create wins every day and you can slowly develop. How many units do you put in of work every day? In soccer, it's measurable by the hours. In business, it's measurable by the same metric, right? So it's same. How many hours are you putting in? And there's wins every day that you can go after that align to greatness. And so I say to our team every Tuesday when we meet that what was our win this week? And if we can't point to a win, maybe we're not looking at the smaller details that matter in the wins. It's not always show me the next MOU, show me the next real estate rendering, show me the next drawing. It's what's the small win? I love hearing a member say, well, I wasn't sure about this one industry in the life sciences, but I made a connection anyway, and it proved out to be an unbelievable connection. Or I made an introduction to this member as they were walking through on a tour. Now they're doing business together. Those are little wins. They don't show up on the report card or balance sheet. But those are little wins that align to an enterprise becoming great. And I've learned that as an athlete. Mike's known that in the military. And now we kind of combine those type of thoughts in our day-to-day for BD.
What are some of the applications of software that you guys use at BD that you're dependent upon and you would recommend to any entrepreneur, any company?
Yeah, you guys familiar with ProsperWorks as far as like a CRM?
No.
It's powered by Google. It just came out this year. It's seamless. It's smart. It's efficient. It's not as robust or deep as Salesforce, but it really allows small businesses up to 30, 50 employees to have success in CRM, to have the data that you need tied to your Gmail and really work the right way. Bill.com for e-commerce allows us to funnel the type of transactions that integrate really well with our MailChimp and also our WordPress site. Slack has been a game changer for our communication tool for our members. And now I'm really looking for not something, how do you say we want to track every member without saying we want to track every member? And so I've asked Ash to think through some type of technology, whether it's tied to a PIN or tied to their iPhone or tied to Bluetooth, that I know what part of the space members are using.
Have you, you could consider...
Talk to your friend that runs Anytime Fitness about their electronic key system.
Yeah.
How about, the reality is this is what Disney does is either for their mobile app or for their Magic Bands. Their Magic Bands let them access hotel rooms, act as a wallet, but it's also tracking their location. But they also have it in their mobile apps and using their mobile apps to track in real time the exact location of people on property and where they are in the world, as long as they have the app installed. So they know like where highest concentration of people interested in Disney World. In theory, you can kind of build your own native mobile app, which obviously has a lot of practicality, from letting you in the buildings, hours, who's available, maybe build a replacement for Slack for communication. But then you can also add your geolocation element to it. Yeah. So in real time, you can see where they are, when they are, how they are.
The place I'm at this month is called The Collective, and give us these key cards to basically get anywhere. It's a co-working, co-living space. And this key card allows me to get in the elevator and use the elevator in any floor, any stairway, any room really. And I guess they can, so the stairways actually you need your key card to get into the stairway and get out, because they need to know what floors you're going on. Every floor has its own like themed room or kitchen. So that's how they track, I guess, where all of us are going. There's a lot of other places that are going to be opening up in this building, like the gym, and there's like a video editing studio that's going to open up in a music production studio. So once I use this to get in, they know that I was in there.
Yeah, we need to, Josh, I might have to lean on you on this. Get with Ash. We need to come up with some type of solution, because part of our sell to members is like a fitness center is a great example, Eddie, that you mentioned.
I was just thinking, like, you need childcare, fitness centers in your spots.
You have to check out The Collective in Old Oak in London if you ever get a chance. The place is brand new and it's insane. It's their second location, I think, and they're opening a third one. And
this is not a paid endorsement.
It's not a paid endorsement. I'm actually really excited about it, because each month we've been doing a different living situation and different co-working space, and living in the co-working space is like a really, really cool environment and community.
I have checked it out, actually. I'm familiar with the Collective. I didn't realize we were there.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Cool.
We got a good pulse on what's happening everywhere, and that it's a unique look, and you're seeing some of this trend of co-living inside these collaborative workspaces. WeWork's doing We Live now. Makes a whole lot of sense. But to go back to the point on the technology side, that's the next layer that we want to get to. Penn just asked us to build a member portal for him, Josh, that's dynamic, more dynamic than any of our like member pages right now, that we're going to adopt. I think that's going to tie into how members use space, how they check in, how do we know they're there? So when you're a mobile member,
you can have your native mobile app, your web app. You can then tie it out, outsource it, or not outsource it, but you can like partner with UPenn and them so they can use the same technology. Your members can adopt it.
Have them pay for it.
Yeah, there you go. Here we go. We'll set up a separate conversation. For those listening at home, you can see how business is handled.
That's right.
Through podcasts. These are how the talks. I mean, this is actually how a lot of our client relationships start, are exactly these quick conversations where ideas are born and translate into working together. So it's a real life example of practicality right here for everyone at home.
Yeah, I love it. For real. I love it.
Cool, man. All I could say is what you guys are doing for Philadelphia and the amount of impact you guys are making. And I know that's, at the end of the day, the members, the companies, I mean, just look at one of your members, the amount of money just raised, and what's them called? Purchase, how much did they just raise Curelate recently? I can't think offhand.
$25 million was their second round.
Crazy. Yeah. So the amount, the radar, basically what you're putting Philly on the radar here is unbelievable. And I mean, it shows. I mean, last night, not every company in the city is getting like the former mayor just showing up, for any news and announcements. So I think, especially all the council people involved and all the major players of the city. So they should be proud of the fact of what you're doing with Philadelphia and putting it on the map. A lot of people know about Benjamin's Desk. I think it's up there with the 1776 and the 1871s. And, I think that's some great company to be with.
I appreciate that, man. Hey, there was just a little asterisk next to Curate, because a lot of the politicians and dignitaries, when they come through, they'll use them as an example because they're on our site and everybody knows about them. But they were only here for a couple months, 2 months. So we can't really champion them as much as the politicians do. Sometimes I hate to run into a poo and then look at me like, Ant, so you're leveraging us? We were only there 2 months and you're saying you helped us grow? And so I'm always conscious with that. Curate was going to take off if they were in my garage. That's how good they are. But there's other great examples. You got Tassel that just came out of Dreaming.
Melissa's awesome. She's kicking ass. She's going to be on her show soon.
Yeah, you're going to love Melissa. She has something in her eye that's different than a lot of entrepreneurs that you can tell she's going to achieve success. And I can testify to her level of entrepreneur. And you guys are going to enjoy talking with Melissa.
We'll just let her know that Anthony told us, gave her the whole backstory, so we don't need to say anything on her show. We'll just stand there awkwardly for like 10 minutes. Just stare. Just stare at the wall, no movement. Awesome, man. We appreciate you having you on the show, man. Everyone in Philadelphia appreciates everything you're doing. And, what can Pawdcast Nation do for you guys? So what can our listeners back at home, in the car, at work right now do for Benjamin's Desk?
I think, anytime you can amplify a member that we're talking about, that we're showcasing on social media, just dig deeper. It's so fast these days to look at tweets and move on. Some of the links that we put out there about members are robust. They're deep. They're not just this member did this or that. This is getting to the crux of why they are an entrepreneur and why they do what they do. So we always ask people to go deeper, see if our content is richer, see if there's substance behind what we're trying to put out there in programming. Challenge us on that, because at the end of the day, that'll be our biggest differentiator.
How can people reach out to you and find out more about Benjamin's Desk?
Yeah, so benjaminsdesk.com. It's pretty easy. All of our team's first name and at benjaminsdesk.com. So mine's Anthony at benjaminsdesk.com. We have one of those online chats. Someone will always answer if you have any questions. We know coworking is still new to certain industries and certain corporations. But we think the most innovative teams need to be working in these type of spaces. And Benjamin's Desk may not be the best fit, just like Fogo de Chao may not be your favorite restaurant to eat a steak at. But there's plenty of them out there.
That's a bold claim right there, then, man. A bold claim.
Fogo de Chao is my favorite.
It's a pretty damn good one, man. That's what we'll have our next meeting, man. We'll go to Fogo. Let's do it.
All right, bet.
All the protein, man. By the way, just out of curiosity, email. What we're going to do when you hire someone with the same name, because we have 3 Joshes on payroll and we do the same format. So we have Joshua Chop Dog, Joshua Chop Dog, and JW at Chop Dog right now as the email addresses.
That's a problem.
Have you thought about that? Has that ever processed? Do you guys?
Year one, we thought about it. And I said, no, I'm only Anthony. We're not going to grow that fast. And now that we're kicking ourselves a bit, we'll see what happens. We'll see if there's some unique folks out there and diversify the names.
The hardest thing is when we have a client and you have 3 Joshes being involved with a client at once, and 2 of them have the same initials. It can get confusing very quickly. So
I did that. Didn't I do that to you yesterday? I said I called out Joshua Dubrow. I said you're.
I was like, when he called me, I'm like, I had nothing to do with this. What do I do? I'm like, I can't take credit for it. Yeah, I was like, I can't take credit. This is not me. And of course he's right next to me too, which made it that much better. So that was awesome.
Stood up.
Now we appreciate you guys having us. We know your platform is amazing. You guys got an unbelievable audience that listens to you guys. Josh, keep doing what you're doing, man. I didn't fake anything I said last night in regards to the amount of respect we have for you, for your skill set and your expertise, and that doesn't even match the level of person you are in regards to being open to help and being open to listen. So keep doing what you're doing, man. I know we're gonna have a really cool intersection down the road that I'm excited about.
It's gonna be awesome, man. I can't wait. You got to give me the tours, man, when all these spaces are about to open up. I need to see them all in like 1 hour. We're gonna do like a crash session of everything.
Nah, you got to see them before they get pretty. That's when you.
Dude,
really
I want
see
to,
it.
like when I saw the 12th floor like a couple months ago. It's crazy to me how quickly. Yeah, it's like it's. By the way, for anyone listening, if you're ever in Philadelphia, go to the Benjamin's Desk, but in particular the 12th floor at 701 Walnut. It's the view of Center City is the most incredible view. In my opinion, it's probably the best view in the city. That or One Liberty's like observation deck. Like that's really it. Like it's crazy. Plus you're right next to Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell. Like you can't beat that location.
Shout out to the Curtis Center, and actually they call it just the Curtis right now. Billy Glazer, Rich Gottlieb, they gave us the best location in their building. They got 1 million square feet there. We think that 10,000 square feet is the best. It looks at the city at the Bellevue level, so you're seeing all the city like you're in the heart of it. So
I love it. Plus it's so convenient, like the L's right there. So it makes it so easy to get to. I'm actually I'm gonna be in your neck in the woods at 1 o'clock. I have a meeting in Jewelers Row, so I'll be right in Sansom.
I'll pop up, man. I think Jen did like a breakfast today for all the members. So green light that all day.
There you go. Listen, thank you. And for everyone listening, this was the podcast, episode 22. Just a quick FYI, if you need a mobile app, a web app, a wearable app, you need an awesome team to partner with to help make that happen, reach out to us. You can go to hire.chopdog.com, dogs, DAWG. Free quotes, free proposals. We're here to help, and we would love to talk to you. Thank you, Podcast Nation, and we'll chat again next week.